Today on the channel, we have my friend Javi Asilis, a self-taught programmer who's transformed from civil engineer to tech entrepreneur. Currently a software developer at Pana, he's working to make U.S. banking accessible to Latino communities. His journey includes founding several startups from Sean.io to an edtech platform to creating a VR science lab for homeschoolers. He's now embarking on his latest venture, Alert Down. Welcome to the channel, Jose.
Yo, Dominic, thank you very much for having me here. I'm very excited and as always, excellent and getting better.
Awesome. Yeah, great to see you again, Jose. All right, so can you give a 1-minute rundown of where you're at right now with Pana and Alert Down?
Oh my God, here we go. So Pana is a digital banking application. It's now becoming more like a hub that Latino people, immigrants that are going to the United States are able to open their own bank accounts without having a social security. With just their passport or any sort of documentation, you can just go ahead and have your debit card in less than 10, 15 minutes. With Alert Down, because Pana is like my day job, and Alert Down is a personal project I've been running now, which helps you detect possible errors on your site. It monitors from the user's perspective. Imagine if it's like an actual user. It would extract all the flows, all the actions, then it would monitor them to see if something goes wrong. Kind of fills the gap between Datadog, Sentry, LogRocket, in which you need to catch the errors manually. This one will do it the other way around. It's like end-to-end testing, regression testing for you without writing a single line of code.
Wow. So this is your, what is this? This is going to be your fifth startup?
I have no idea.
I believe it's around 6.
I should count them. It's more than that.
Your background is very interesting because you came from a civil engineering background. Let's start with you in high school. So let's go back to high school, Jose, and let's talk about why you chose to go the path you did and what you were thinking about in high school.
So when I was in high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I only knew that I really wanted to do something that people would feel grateful for the things that I was doing. And there was this question that would come in asking like, what were you going to do after you graduate? Like, are you going to go to college, university? I come from a country called Dominican Republic. We don't have the concept of college. We actually have universities after you graduate. So it was more like, what was you're going to be your undergrad after you were done? I didn't know. I literally had no idea. I did love tinkering with things. I was very misunderstood in my house. When I would tell my parents that I wanted to have an experiments book, like the science things, they would just bring me an old book of how the evolution was created and how the human being came to be in today. I'm like, I don't want to do that. I want to tinker, I want to do stuff. I want to blow things up, see that cool things. For example, this YouTuber Mark Rober does that. I would have loved having those things as a kid. And the thing is that around when I was like 4 to 15, I was able to get my first personal computer. I used to have like shared family PC back at home. I would also go to a lot of cyber cafes with my aunt. But that's going to be for another time. And it was the first time that I actually had a machine for me that I could tinker, that I could do stuff with it. And it happened in high school that there was a social studies teacher. He would put his homework on the internet. He created a website. And I remember that a friend and I, we were so pissed off with him that we felt challenged, and we decided, you know what, we're going to build something better than him. And that's how all the programming stuff began. I remember that we began tinkering back at the time, PHP BB forum and FileZilla and running some basic things with PHP. I remember there was also this design tool back in the day called RTSteer, which would generate the HTML and the CSS for you. I didn't know a thing, like nada, nothing. And we didn't have the tools available that we have today. We wouldn't have all these websites that we can learn JavaScript. We wouldn't have all these guides. YouTube wasn't the thing that it was today. And it was just reading some books, trying to copy, do the things, tinker a little bit, follow some random guys over the internet. And that's how we started. That's how we started. And then I ended up studying civil engineering, but not was because it was the path that I chose. It was mostly because in my country, it's very small, and we all live through connections. If you want to go and get somewhere, you'll probably need a couple of people that know your family or have some sort of connection that could at least push you a little bit for you to go to the next step. And I remember when it came the moment for me to decide careers, I had no idea. I remember that I was kind of like researching things just a little bit, and I saw the software engineering on one of the main universities in my country, the software engineering career, and I told my parents that, and my grandfather, who was at the time very influential in my life, I told them like, hey, I'm going to study that. And they said like, no. My dad and my grandfather, they said like, no, you cannot study that. What is that? They don't know. They didn't even know about it. And I'm talking about 2009 and 2010. I know. It's crazy. It's crazy. But that's how some of those countries operate. And they had like this mindset that software engineering was very similar to IT, because they come from the background that whatever you study is who defines you. And they didn't see like software engineering as a career by itself. And when they told me that, I had no idea what I was going to study. I remember I was sitting in my classroom in high school, and I had a friend like 2 or 3 tables sitting next to me, and he gets like a flyer that was saying the civil engineering degree. I was standing. I looked at his flyer, and I said, you know what? I'm going to study that. And that's it. I'm going to learn the software stuff. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I'm just going to continue tinkering, and I'm just going to do that. And that's how everything started. And around school, I remember that it was very, very important to where I am today, because besides challenging my teacher, I also began having this small website that would upload my coursework, my homework, past exams, that people would go and download them. We didn't have Dropbox at the time. I didn't know that thing even existed. And it was more like 3 or 4 classrooms back in school would use it to get together coursework. And I remember I even got into trouble because of that, because I would upload the past exams and teachers would reuse the tests. And they got so mad at me that I'd take it down. And they also got mad because I was using the school's name on the URL. Even though it was everything free, you had this temporary website, which you'd say projectc.webhost84.com, but it was so fun. And through all of that, that's how I began the civil engineering degree. But when I go to university and I began my undergrad in civil engineering, I remember that there were some openings for an institution that was around like 30-40 minutes away from the city, that I would take a bus and go there for a basic PHP course. And I remember asking my father, like, hey, this is extra. I want to go and take it. And he accepted. And I went with the same friend that we challenged our teacher for the website. We went and took those courses, and it was mind-blowing. I didn't know what was a function, that you could actually reuse things, but how could I connect to a database? How can I insert data? How can I read from it? And I felt it felt so magical once you began doing that, and the authentication system, like username and password. And I said, oh my God, the world opened to me. It opened to me. And it was exciting and thrilling, because I could again feel that same inner joy that I had as a child, that I could create things. You had all this blank canvas and your imaginations, and then your imagination was the limit. And after that, the course is over, the basic PHP course. I wanted to go like for more advanced, but the problem was that course was over the weekend, and my dad didn't want me to take the course over the weekend. So that was the last time he paid for anything, for any of that. And I think it was the best decision it ever happened to me, because that forced me to learn by my own. And I remember that I began struggling so much with that thing. I began doing some side projects besides the school thing. That was already past. I already got past the schoolwork, because I was in university. And I began working on a online manga for a series called Bleach, because I thought that the best way for me to keep learning was to marry the technology aspect with something that I really liked. And I was a little bit into Bleach, and I said, like, you know what? I think I can come up with something more revolutionary than what we had. And even though I had very limited skills, like nada, I barely knew some JavaScript, I barely knew some PHP, I began my journey and began doing stuff. And it was so amazing when you could create like these 2 or 3 features that today they may sound super simple, but it meant the world to me. For you to express what you had in your brain and get that thing working and saying like, wow, I think I finally ended up challenging the status quo and creating this something that I thought it was super cool. And everything began from there, I would say. I began reading about JavaScript at that time. It was so hard, so hard. I remember that I didn't, in my country, we don't have this awesome books from awesome programming books. There were some of them, they were outdated. We're not like the good stuff. And I remember that every time that I used to travel to the United States, I would buy probably 3 times that I did. Some huge books that you got like from A Press. I remember a huge PHP book and another one from JavaScript. And then I would read and try to type it in as I did in school. And that's how I began learning. Then got some PDFs, used to read from the computer, something that I hated to death. But I think thanks to that, I become self-taught and I was able to move along.
And was this your time you were in college, or was this just in high school? So this was
No,
all through college.
Yeah, it was all through college, all the reading
And what
stuff.
were you thinking about your regular degree and courses in college compared to your self-taught?
So here's the thing. Whenever you were looking for a degree, there's an economic aspect to it. Like you were expecting for you to earn some money. At least that's the usual thing. I didn't care about money. Zero. Nada. I didn't have that formation. I didn't have those teachings. But it was something in my house. It would be, how can you say this? It wasn't tricky. It was a very delicate, it was kind of taboo, but I would say it was a hot topic, especially because my dad would come to my room every day. When I say every day, I say every day, 365 days, 7 days a week. He would come to my room and he would say, Jose, you don't know how things are out there. You don't know how hard is life. You don't know what is it to work. And I remember that there was one night, I think I was 15, 16 years old. I was laying down in my bed. I was scrolling through tech news and he came to my room. At the same time, I was reading that a technology company sold for more than $400 million. And that I didn't think it meant too much at the time, but that told me that, I don't know why, but what I got from that moment was that like getting money was easy, that you only needed to learn how to do things and everything else would fall into place. Because between 2000 and 2010, we lived in a technology environment in which a lot of startups that were created from dumb, quote unquote, ideas, because the technological prowess that it was required for them to build them was way harder than we had today. Building like Twitter, like Tumblr, things that look stupid, like were silly or easy, or the 1 pixel thing for $1 that people would pay for it. And I just said like, hey, I just need to learn how to do these things, get it out there, and the money will come. Now you and I know that was not true, but that is different. And it was thanks to that, I think it was thanks to that led me to get to all the programming stuff. So when it came to my degree, I wasn't thinking too much of it, because I said like, you know what, I'm just gonna complete what I did in school, and then I'm just gonna learn the things that I need to learn, do something in software, get the money, and then I would figure out to do some sort of research and development and keep tampering, keep and keep creating stuff. And that's how it ended up doing.
And for the people thinking of going to college today, and they're facing the challenge of it's a lot more expensive today to go to college, do you have any advice for them or anything you would want them to think about prior to going to college?
Yep. I would say that, first of all, don't kid yourself, because we have the examples of Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, that they dropped out of school, right? But they were self-taught. They kept learning. They kept doing things. They ran their businesses. And although I'm not opposed to both sides, I don't think that you would do wrong by going to college. I don't think you would do right by not going there. If you decide not to go, then you better have a solid plan. Because when college was created, or the concept of university that we have today comes from the industrial age. Universities are more than 1,000 years old, but the concept that we have today is for you to work, get prepared on a job, and get a good job on a single company, then work there for the rest of your life, and then retire. And we all know together that the market is very volatile. You probably may last on a place tops 3 or 4 years. Very few people may last up to 5, 10, like depending on the individual. But I would say that think about your finances. If you wanna go more on the entrepreneurial side, you probably don't need to go, but you must have like a solid plan. I do remember an investor when I was studying in the Rochester Institute of Technology in RIT in Rochester, New York. He told me something important, and he said the good thing when you go to a good place, a good university, a good college, is that you are surrounded with good people, and that the place makes a pre-filter to have good people around you. And that was so true. In my opinion, I think that's good. I think that if you decide to go, the very first thing you should focus on is on building relationships and getting the most out of the environment more than the classes itself, because the classes, you will likely learn them by your own. And I think that especially if you go in the software engineering career, you will do more if you begin picking your curiosity and driving yourself from it and beginning with your own projects. And if you have this entrepreneurial mind that you want to start your own business, I would say like just start it, because you will learn 100 times more from doing the things than just sitting down passively receiving the information. So in conclusion, I think that it's up to you. It is, because where I come from, it's not that expensive as it is in the United States, and you get to meet people, you get to have those relationships. But if it's very, very expensive, I don't know. It's a tough one, because I don't want to decide for anybody else. Again, if you decide to go to college, just think about your overall your finances. Understand that the market is not going to be as easy on you as if you actually did, because you went to a good university. I think you will do a lot of good if you begin a personal project that you can showcase to the world. You're going to be learning a lot, and not because you go to to college or you didn't go to college does not mean that you will be able to get a job in tech. Because I never got my degrees on any software engineering course. I did study a lot, and I keep learning a lot from the people that are far away from me, the people that have done stuff, and just keep shipping. Man, I need to fix this. Jesus Christ. I'm just jumping around. I have no clue.
Very good. All right. So you just completed your bachelor's degree. Then where do you go next?
I went to do an internship at a construction company that were building one of the unimportant highway that, it was, how do you get it? It was more like an interstate. It's like a very important piece of road that was going to connect different parts of the country. Remember, Dominican Republic is very small as compared to the United States. But it was going to connect different parts of the country, and it was a very interesting project from civil engineering. And I went there for about a year and a half. And I mean, that internships you don't generally do a lot, depending on the place that you go, especially when you're very early stage. I would take that time, that slack time that they would give me, to learn more programming stuff. At that time, I was a friend of mine, the same friend. It's always the same friend that we created the website together and everything. He told me to learn ASP.NET MVC5 because we want to build like this social media thing, and we were concerned about the performance of PHP and the performance of Ruby and Rails. But in reality, we didn't know crap. And I remember that I began doing that. Around that time, I also began my first big entrepreneurial, I would say, company, which was a video game hosting tournament, like a video game tournament hosting company that we would host the different video games tournaments across the year. And I remember that I began applying, like, for the first time ever, a much more serious approach on programming there. I wanted to create the first website. I remember working a little bit with Bootstrap at the time, that I was using it so wrong. I learned, oh my God, I used Bootstrap the wrong way. You think it's not possible? I told you it's possible. I used it the wrong way. And began learning more advanced things in JavaScript. I didn't know what was an object in JavaScript. It was dumb, but I never knew about it. I would just use like functions scattered across the entire document and write things around. And that's when I actually began learning more of the inner depth of the programming language by itself. And after that year and a half, I went to get a master's degree in engineering management. That's when I went to the Rochester Institute of Technology, RIT, in Rochester, New York, which I stayed there for about 2 years and 8 months.
Yeah, that's where we met.
We met.
What was it? It was like an applied entrepreneurship class.
So here was the thing. Here's the thing. And I know that we're more focused on the career path. I didn't want to go to Rochester. I didn't want to go to RIT. That's how we abbreviate the college and university. I didn't want to go there because at that time when I was in 2015, I was in some sort of crisis. My parents were pushing me to go ahead and do a master's program. Let me explain. In our country, it is very important, since we're very small, that we go outside of the country. We travel abroad. And so we can get some experience. We meet different kind of people. We get exposed to the outer world. And that is something that I wholeheartedly agree. I was never opposed to it. And in fact, I encourage everyone that is listening that if you have the chance to go outside of your city or outside your country, do it. Do it. Because the experience and the exposure you're going to have will transform you. But at that time, I was building the video game company, the hosting company. We made the biggest event of the entire year. And even though we lost a lot of money, we lost around like $2,000 at the time, which was a lot of money, especially for us when my internship was paying me like $300 every month. That was crazy. It was like 6 times my income. And I remember that I was having some tough time because when I talked to people from my field that like about their masters, they would tell me that they were getting paid very bad. Like they would go get the experience and then they would come back to the country and they would be overqualified for the positions. And that was very important because I remember that I had mentors at the time, and one of those mentors told me, Jose, you're not able to predict the future, but you may know how things may go if you look somebody that has to walk the path that you're about to walk right now further along in the lines. What that means is that if you want to know how a software engineering lives, see a software engineering in whatever place you see yourself working at 10 years from now. Is that a person that has been working there for 10 years? Is that a software engineering that has worked for 15, 20 years? How is it the lifestyle that you're looking for? And I was very impacted by that statement. So every time somebody went to get a master's, they would come back and they would give me the reality back. And I was torn apart because I said, like, why would I go to a master's when I would come back and get overqualified for a position, or they wouldn't pay me the things that I wanted at the time? Although I was never looking for a salary, I was looking more for building a business. That was my focus. But here was the thing. My parents kept pushing me, and I was so torn apart. I didn't know what to do. And at that time, I remember I think it was like May 2015, that an author called Ashley Vance released a book about Elon Musk. And I read that book like in 3 or 4 days. It was a record for me because that book is huge. It's like 400, 500 pages. I took time from my internship, that slack time that I had, to actually devour that thing. And it helped me a lot because for the first time ever, I know that Elon may have a different rhyme right now, that you have like these 2 different sides. But for me, he felt like some sort of hero because at that time, I finally saw somebody that did the thing that I've been searching to do for a long time. He was some sort of inventor, of creator. He made the PayPal. He then invested into Tesla. A lot of bad things happened in between, but it was good. I did see that throughout the book, there were a lot of people who did say that they were going to study a master's or who got a master's degree in something concrete that then they would use and apply it for their own business. And when I saw that, I said, like, there we go. I got to find some sort of master's program that I could use and take it to my business and apply it there. But the problem was that I didn't feel at the moment that there was a master's program over there that I could apply and get to that would benefit my business, because we were doing kind of fine. We needed to learn more about event management, but I didn't have like a concrete skill. Like you needed to learn more about physics, or you needed to learn more about electrical engineering, or you need to learn like something more like a hard skill. And again, even though I had a much more clearer path, my parents were pushing me. So I ended up picking another master's program at random. I thought that I picked construction management, but it was not. I ended up picking like engineering management and applied and got accepted to it. In the end, the engineering management felt like an MBA for engineers, which was kind of good. Even though I felt it was outdated, but I ended up learning a couple of accounting skills, which I completely forgotten by now. But but here's the thing. When I got into the program, even though I didn't want to do it, I told myself, say, if you come here, when I was like traveling to Rochester, if you go here with a closed mind, the one who's gonna pay for it is gonna be you. You're gonna be the one inflicted. So you better go with an open mind and try to take as much advantage as possible. And I remember that, I don't know how is it in other places, but it was very interesting that in the United States, when you do a master's program, you're able to choose the different classes you were going to take. And I remember there was this entrepreneurship class, and I had like electives, and I ended up like choosing it. And when I go to the professor, I go to the first class, and I remember listening to a professor. It was much more of a discovery class. It was more like, you got to go and interview 10 entrepreneurs and ask about them and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. That's freaking boring. I want to go where's the meat. Where's the action? I negotiated with the professor to take that class because he was taking me to this introduction to entrepreneurship, and I didn't want that. And that's one of the things that I'm going to tell the audience is that whenever you go, if you decide to go to college or you go to an accelerator program or do something else, go beyond the actual means that you have and try to get the things that you're looking for. Try to take as much advantage as you can, as humanly possible, because you never know what's going to happen. If I didn't take that decision, if I didn't make that decision on choosing that class, we would have never met. Never. And sometimes life has this very thin, how do you say, I want to say straw, but it's like a very fine thread between something that could change your life and something that nothing happens. So that's why I encourage everybody to always make their decisions, even though if they have fear of failing at them, because I rather live life knowing that I tried something and failed rather than, crap, what would have happened? How could my life be different? And every time that something wrong happens to you, it's a way of the universe to make you stronger, for you to actually become worthy of the thing that you're looking for. Because during all of these years that I continued learning software engineering, not because I wanted to get a job, it was much more because it was a thing of expressing my creativity, and that creativity could be funneled through a business that could reach 2,000 or millions or hundreds of millions of people across the world, that could make their lives better because of the thing that you started. But there will be times that when you begin, you may not realize it, but you probably won't be ready. And life will throw you a lot of challenges. You will have to overcome them. Things will not go your way, but you still must remain on the road, because it is going to be thanks to all of those experiences that you will become the person that will be worthy of the result. If I didn't start all these businesses now, it's going to be 13 years ago, 12 years ago, I wouldn't know the things that I knew today. Not even close.
Yeah. You got to start at some point.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I remember when I was choosing to go to college myself, I was originally thinking that I would be a web VR developer, basically be working at Meta right now, but not. Decided not to go down that route. But in that, I also decided that I wanted to make a business. And my goal in college was to find my team of people that would start the company together. I had a major, software engineering, and then I had a minor in communications. And then I had 3 classes I could take for my concentration, and that was in entrepreneurship. That's where I took that applied entrepreneurship class and met you.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
All right. So you joined the entrepreneurship class. We met. What happened after that? Where'd you go?
At that time, I left my country. I was doing the video game tournament company that was hosting the video games. And since I moved to Rochester and that was more an in-person thing, I began transitioning the company to doing it digitally, online. And I think that was the first time I began working on startups, because it's not a startup, it's not every type of business. It's a business that is able to scale pretty quickly. And even though like a lot of dynamics of small businesses do still apply, the growth aspect, the scale, how it actually reaches is very different. So when I went to the applied entrepreneurship class, I made the transition from that more traditional approach to an actual startup. And that's when we began working on a digital platform. That's when I began honing my programming skills. I remember that it was thanks to that I hit so many roadblocks. One of the things because I was using C#, because that was more of the Microsoft stack, because it was back when my friend told me that I had to learn it. I remember that they would use a design pattern called dependency injection, which basically means that you create interfaces for your classes. And instead of passing the actual class, you define the interface, and then through the constructor, you pass the implementation of the class. The underlying logic of that is that you would have separation of concerns. And if you needed to replace the underneath class, you could replace it without directly impact the pieces of code that depended on it. And I thought that was like the best way for you to have like some sort of architecture on your application. And I remember that I was working on PG Arena. That's what it was called, Programming Arena. And I remember hitting so many roadblocks because the code would become a big ball of mud. It was garbage. Things would break. The code was very complicated, and I needed to find a way to fix it. And it was thanks to that it led me to learn something called domain-driven design that taught me the abilities to much better organize and into a different architecture, your code base, so it could grow in size, but the complexity would still be manageable. And until this day, that's how I mostly program. I think it is not a silver bullet. It's not applicable to every type of project, but the way that you organize things, it allows you to do much. And if it wasn't because I decided to start that company and I intended for that product to get to people, I wouldn't have taken certain considerations and I wouldn't have integrated certain technologies at the time that on a traditional side project you wouldn't have used. And after that, I remember it was 2-3 months down the line, I got very defeated when I learned that somebody else was doing the same thing that I did. And that was such a new mistake, because you have competition all the time. And that's something that I learned. Even though you don't have direct competition, that you don't have somebody that's doing the exact same thing, you have somebody else that is doing something different or that is gathering people's attention. I remember around that time that on RIT, we received Alexis Ohanian, which was one of the co-founders of Reddit. And he said something in the keynote that he gave that I will never forget. And until this day, I think it applies to every startup. And he says, startup number one enemy isn't competition. Startup number one enemy is obscurity. People don't know who you are. And that is more true today than ever. You may create a revolutionary piece of technology, but if people don't know that you exist and that you do the thing that you are saying that you do, you're screwed. And that's why today I focus a lot on the copy, how you write the headline, how people actually interact with the thing that you do. What is it that people are feeling? And I consider that to be equally as important as all the technology or the tech stack that you end up choosing. Because companies in general, when you work on a product, everything works as a living organism. There is no part that isn't as important as the other. What I mean by that is that even though something may not be as complex as the technological part, if you don't have the other part running, the business is not going to work. The analogy that I like to make is that, for example, thinking, you have different functions in your body, and eating, right? That you need to chew and do things. Let's say it's a simple task, but something much more automatic would be breathing. And if you don't breathe, you die. So even though it is simpler because it's something even automatic that you do, it has an equal standing as eating, in the sense that if you don't do you don't do both things, if you don't munch, if you don't get your food, you will die anyways. Probably one will take longer than the other, but in the end, it's demise. And the same things happens on the company. You may have a solid product, but you have no people using it, then you're gone. If you have great marketing, kick-ass marketing, but you have a crappy product that doesn't work and people leave, you die. And I don't want to take more that concept into depth, because there's a fabulous book that I recommend the audience, which is called The E-Myth. And it talks more, this goes more for technical people that are building businesses, that he practically covers that a business by itself, you should treat it as a product, that you have to systematically make it grow. And he says that whenever you move from the technical aspect and you run a business, there's an increased set of responsibilities that come from it, that you have to deal with each one of them. Otherwise, the business either will stall or it will fail. And that's the same thing that happens on startups in general. And one of the things that I have learned is that you have to treat it as an overall system. Even though I'm very passionate about creating products, that's the thing that I would love doing. I would love just focus on the code, get it out there. When you want to create a startup or a business, you have to think in the everything. And when I was saying about when I was talking about the importance now of the copy of the text that you write, or on how you communicate to those people, they may not look technologically hard, or that you would require a lot of, let's say, hard skills, although you do require a lot of skills for that. They are paramount, because they are the entry point. And the thing that Alexis Ohanian was saying, that you deal with obscurity, it is, you have to get all the points in your favor to differentiate yourself out in the marketplace, so you get to the right people that would use your product, so you can actually make it grow. And I know I made the transition and the jump from what we were talking about, applied entrepreneurship. And I said that because when I saw the competition out there, that I thought it was much better than I was, that I couldn't compete against them, I decided to fold it, which today I would say it totally depends. I would have focused on a different market. I would have used that as a validation, because you're always having competition, as I mentioned earlier. And I would just have continued doing something else, bringing in the customers more closely, talk more to them, and see what part of the market the other company was not fulfilling that I could have actually provided. Then after the PG Arena, it folded. That's when I started working with you directly, co-owners on Pardo, the science lab for homeschoolers, which was a very interesting one. And that was very interesting because we thought at the time that VR was going to be the next big thing, and it looked like we were not foreseeing anything related with Bitcoin or the crypto community. AI was not as hot as it was today. I do remember that Coursera and Andrew Ng were working more on getting all these neural networks together, more to the masses with their deep learning specialization course. It was we're talking now late 2016, beginning 2017. No. That was late 2017. And we thought that it was a big thing. And we decided to focus on it. And we applied for a program within the university called The Magic, which was the video game development department within RIT. And we got a summer program that they funded us for us to into this project, which was the best summer I ever had. And I guess it was very tough. This was a very technologically tough product to make, even for an MVP, because we didn't realize of all the math involved, of all the design work that it required, and the technology that we were using at the time, which was WebVR or A-Frame, was not as mature as the tools that video game developers do. Because in the end, when you work in VR, it's like creating a video game. You have all this interaction you got to do, and it's a video game. And there were tools out there like Unity, Unreal Engine, that were much more prepared for the job than the tools that we were using, which we were using plain JavaScript for the thing in 3JS at the time. They're good. I'm not saying they're bad, but the thing is that you require like much more work around it, like the assets creation, the interaction, the collisions, the ray casting, and all kind of stuff. It was a very good learning experience, and I think that was the first time I truly experienced burnout. I remember that we were trying to push the company as much as possible, but the lack of progress created the burnout. And I felt so good when I stopped working on it because I felt liberated. I said like, oh my God, for the first time ever, I'm free to do something else. I also went to the Dominican Republic like for a couple of weeks, and I participated on a startup program like for a weekend called Startup Weekend. I think Google had like sponsored, it was like one of those sponsors, but I don't think they even knew about that thing. That's where I presented like the Park Pay. It was a park payment system that, because I hated using tickets, and I said like, you know what, we gotta automate this thing. We gotta make it like more digital. We're gonna make it more modern. I just want to go with my car to parking lots and just drive without the need of having that thing. I remember then after Pardo closed, I remember that I continued working on it for a little bit, but ended up discarding it because where I wanted to apply it didn't have, which was my capital city back in Dominican Republic, or not a lot of places that would use like ticketing system with parking, especially on malls. They all had open access except for two of them. And I said like, you know what, I'm just quitting this. But fast forward a couple of months, Alexa came into our world. Amazon was pushing very hard with Echo devices. And I remember in Google Assistant, I thought that was going to be like a very big wave. So there was Alexa. So just talking. It was fun. And I began developing for Alexa. And I wanted to create like this. I created this app called My Technician, which basically you talk to Alexa and then it would help you diagnose the computer's problems that you had. That was a bad idea. I did that because my grandmother would call me all the time to ask me why she had problems. I thought like, hey, why don't I just create like this system or this device that you could interact with that could answer you all of these questions and would tell you how to fix it. But that didn't work out. That didn't work out. First of all, computers did not break as often as they did in the past. Two, most people, they would require some sort of guidance in the user interface. Like from the voice alone, you wouldn't necessarily be able to fix it. So that was discarded. It lasted like for, I think 2 or 3 months. I did have some sort of landing page prototype ready that didn't do much. But then a friend of mine contacted me, and this is another like very long story, but I'm not going to say anymore, about Sean, which was the edtech startup. Oh my God, that took 3 years. I think we did a lot of right things and a lot of bad things that in retrospective, they look bad. But when you're on the battlefield, they may not look as obvious as they are. And that was an ed tech platform for my country, for the Dominican Republic. We're building
Education technology
platform. Thank you. It was what we call the learning management system, the one that you use in high school, in college, university, for you to upload coursework and everything. But it had something special. And it was that the government changed how students were scored and evaluated, and it ran all the programs obsolete. And we created I think it was the first software that was able to evaluate students with this new mechanism. And there were so many things that we did wrong, I think. And because this was a very interesting product, because it was like B to B to C, because you had to sell to the schools. But in the end, the end user would be parents and students and teachers. So at the same time, even though the problem of scoring was still there, the director of school, the principal of the school was looking for something else, while the parents were looking for something else and the students were looking for something else. And when you tried to sell it, even if you had like these different value propositions, either the school found it like very expensive, that they didn't want to implement it, or they didn't think it was going to do much. After 3 long years of knocking doors, of iterating the product, we decided to close it. And that was a very important time for me because I was 29 at that time. And I remember many years ago, at that time, I had 7 years that I started my entrepreneurship career, and I felt a little bit devastated. I remember that I was in the pool and like walking around, reflecting a little bit and asking myself like, why wasn't in the place that I was supposed to be. Because I thought that by this age, by when I was gonna turn like 30, I would have enough money, like several millions of dollars, because of the way that I saw myself on when I was 15, because everything was very easy to build, and I just had to build it and everything would come. But that I had invested in myself, like going through a lot of seminars, leadership programs throughout the years, that I would work like countless of hours to make things work. Like, why did even though I did all of that, I was not able to make progress? And that began think like a year, almost 2 year journey for me of reflection and understanding of the things that I was doing wrong or I was not doing at all. And finally got the questions answered. And basically, there's a lot that we can get out of it, but it has to do a lot of with the set of beliefs that I had at the time. It is not only the things that you were doing or not, it's also what are those other beliefs that are around you that are also hindering your progress. Like, for example, if you go ahead and show the product to somebody, do you think that you're making them a favor, or you think that you're creating them problems, right? Do you think it's a bad thing that you're showing them all these things, or not? And those are one of the things. The other thing was that I thought basics were outdated, since I had so fixated myself with getting the latest technology and getting the latest things. I thought that techniques that were useful like 5, 10, 30, 40 years ago were outdated, and I didn't need to use it. That's so wrong. Making cold phone calls, talking to people, proper follow-up, email, texting, all those basic things, they're still valid today. They will be valid tomorrow. And those were things that I didn't do in the past. And especially I had a lot of ego, because ego has different faces. It's not like one-sided coin. It's more like a entire spectrum that can appear in different things. And the fact that I thought that I was able to do everything by myself, that was wrong. You could do a lot of things. I also had limiting beliefs when it was like to building the businesses, that I couldn't hire somebody for a temporary work. And man, a lot of things. But I think that the fact that I wouldn't focus on fixing the basics, something very important, that I thought that basics were those things, they were basics, that the real meat comes from doing the advanced stuff, but that's false. The advanced comes from doing the basics very well and doing more of the basics. Those are the things that come right into my head.
So let's continue to where you are today with Pana, and now your latest venture, using all your knowledge that you've gained throughout the years with Alert Down. So let's talk about Pana first, and then let's get to Alert Down.
So Pana is in the process of raising Series A. It's doing well, I'd say. I'm going to say it's doing well. There are a lot of products that have launched. I have learned quite a few things when it comes to, or at least on the technological side. But I think the things that I have learned the most from working there has been the part of the things that I saw that I was missing, such as an incredible connection with co-founders. One way that teams could be handled, other ways that I would do it differently myself. And I think that overall Pana is doing well. We've grown. Unfortunately, it's a business that depends a lot on capital, and it's been very tough to raise the rounds over these few years because of the general environment. If it's not in AI, it's practically not getting funded at all. Things are gonna be better. I think this year is gonna be better. The company is gonna be growing and everything. And I think Pana's doing well.
Awesome. All right. So let's talk about Alert Down, your current venture. What's going on?
Awesome. So it took me around 5 months to build an MVP, which I wanted to jump myself out of a bridge, because like MVPs shouldn't take this long. Although I have to say that things take longer than they should sometimes. And I
All the time?
Yeah. I finally launched it last week. And to my surprise, and not to my surprise, I have mixed receptions, in the sense that when I got it to the internet, I haven't received a lot of traffic that I thought I was going to receive. Much more traffic than I had. But when I talk to people, I do get positive feedback. And it's not this typical feedback, oh, that looks really cool. The answer is, that is useful. It's a very, very different answer. And right now, Alert Down, I need to do two things with it. I need to change the entire copy of the product, I need to make it more specific. I need to improve the landing page. And I also need to add a missing feature, which it handles the login screens. Just to make a quick recap, Alertdown is a monitoring platform. It extracts all of the possible user flows that a user can do, then it monitors them to see if something is broken. Instead of having like a global error, it goes directly to the button, directly to the form, directly to the click, drag, to all the actions the user can make. And if something like that is broken, then it will notify you immediately. If something that I know the value prop is there. I know it is a product. I have a lot of belief in this product. And based on an experience that I had on April 2024, was that I launched a product called the Cloud that automated Cloud Run deployments that is on Google Cloud, that would deploy your Docker container instantaneously to Google Cloud without performing any sort of configuration. It would do it by assigning like minimal permissions, and everything was like a DevOps glorified application. And then this was funny. I released the product. Nothing happened. But then I changed it to Go developers, and I said launch your Go apps almost instantaneously. And I repackaged the product, put it on a GitHub repo, and I got 22,000 impressions with it. So that taught me that before you calling it quits on a project, you have to try as many angles as possible to identify the thing that will resonate with people. And that's where Alertdown is standing. I have to now try different combinations, make it much more specific, get it out there, include now the missing feature that I was talking about, which is the login, which is going to be a technologically challenge marvel. It's going to teach me a lot. And with that, I think things are going to be different. At the same time, I'm also exposing myself much more. I'm working on the things that I should have worked on me, like improving my communication skills, improving the way that I communicate or show in social media. I want to leave with the audience with this. There are times that it seems it takes a long time for things to happen, but the fact is that you delayed to take the action that you had to take several years back, the years that you were missing. If it took you 10 years to finally start seeing results, it probably took you 10 years to make the decision for you to have the results. And those are the things that I'm also working on right now.
So you're working with AI in Alertdown, correct?
Yep.
And how does AI play into Alertdown?
What's unique about this product is that the flows are done for you automatically. It's like an end-to-end test without you writing a single line of code. Before and on the past, you had to go manually, line by line, writing every action that the user have to take. In this case, it would do it all automatically, and that's where the large language models come into place. It is thanks to them that you're able to extract and make like a discovery of all the things the user can do and how it interacts and the buttons that it needs to do and the fields that it needs to fill in for it to make it possible. So that's where the AI part comes in to play.
Automated end-to-end test. Yeah, I like that. All right. And is there any other advice, feedback you would want to give the audience, people looking at different career paths, maybe thinking about changing careers, looking at entrepreneurship as an option?
Yeah. First of all, if it's the first time that you're going to do entrepreneurship for yourself and you don't have any preparation, don't burn off the bridges just yet. Try to do it in parallel with the thing that you're doing, because there's always time. You just have to work a little bit more. But I think that's going to be better for you because you're going to be able to appreciate the little time that you have. You're going to be more reserved with those things. That's one. And that is something that I'm applying myself very recently. There will be a lot of unknowns out there. Make the best choice that you have with information available at your hand and don't look back. Just take it, have faith that things will work out in the end, even if they don't work out in the short run, because it's, again, the best outcome is going to come from making that decision in the end. I rather feel that, dang, I tried, than, wow, what if? And those roadblocks you're going to hit are just going to make you better. They're going to make you worthy of the ultimate prize. It's also called the myth of the hero. If you study the ancient mythology, you will see that all this demigods would go through a lot of struggle before they became gods. And it's through that struggle that you grow. And think about this. I remember hearing this from a YouTuber called Marquez Brownlee, MKBHD. I'm never going to forget this. He says there was a coach told him this. Pressure is a privilege. And the same thing I'm going to tell you is like struggle is also a privilege in the sense that it's going to make you grow. And if you grow and you don't hit the target, at least you should give yourself the opportunity to reflect on it and just keep going. And just start. Just do it. Just start. Don't wait for things to be perfect, or don't wait for you to be good to start. Because for you to be good, you have to start. So start now and go ahead and learn along the way. You have a lot of resources that you have today that we didn't have in our past. I think that's going to be my 2 cents to the audience.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so how can people reach you?
They can reach me out on Twitter, X, or LinkedIn at Javi Asilis. So you can put the descriptions down below.
Yep, it'll be in the show notes. Excellent. Awesome.
I was just gonna tell them that seriously, like reach out to me. I'm good. We can bounce off ideas. We can talk to each other. I'm reachable.
Yeah, you're here to hear. If you have any ideas or you want to bounce off ideas from someone who's gone through the rigor of many attempts and some successes and a lot of learning, then reach out to Jose. All right. Thanks, Jose, for coming on the channel.